I've managed to stay out of the hospital for 3.5 years following 5 years of hospitalizations. I've done this by using a very specific strategy while dosing my antipsychotic medication. The antipsychotic that I use is called loxapine, and the instructions on the label are to use 20 milligrams at bedtime as needed. Through conversations with my psychiatrist, we've changed this dosing regimen. Make sure you watch this full video and listen to the 3 points that I make about this specific dosing strategy, because I don't want you to leave this video with only partial information, because this is something that may work for you if you're a bipolar patient. And of course, when I say this, I only mean to try something like this if you've discussed it thoroughly with your doctor. Now, before I get into the 3 dosing strategies that I use for this medication, I should say that I don't think this strategy will work very well, particularly for people who haven't had at least a couple manic episodes. So you need that experience so you can relate your thought patterns back to past hypomanic or manic episodes, so you can use that information to make the decision on which strategy you'll use. And you have to make this decision on a nightly basis. And the other point that I'd like to make is that it's still crucial to have a mood stabilizer medication on board for your dosing strategy. Myself, I use 1,050 milligrams of lithium for this purpose. Alright, so what is the strategy? Well, I'll break it down into 3 doses. The first dose is 20 milligrams at bedtime, and I call this the total reset dose. I use this dose when I need a total reset as far as my mind is concerned, but the main factor that makes me use 20 milligrams on a nightly basis is when I've gotten 3 consecutive nights of less than 8 hours of sleep. And the second factor that causes me to use this dose is when I'm having intrusive thoughts, either on the high side, more related to hypomania, or on the low side, relating more to a depressed state. And these intrusive thoughts are affecting my day-to-day life. The negative part about using 20 milligrams at bedtime is that I can't really wake up before my alarm clock or get out of bed early in general, so it's not possible for me to have productive mornings at this dose. The second dosing strategy is 15 milligrams at bedtime, and I call this cautious dosing. I use 15 milligrams when I'm sleeping well consistently, so getting that 8 hours per night, and the intrusive thoughts are minimal to the point where they're not affecting my day-to-day life. I typically use this dosing strategy in the winter months when I know bipolar isn't right around the corner for me. Me personally, bipolar seems to go along with the seasons. However, having said that, I'm in a position where I'm not quite comfortable to move down to the minimum dosing at this time. Something in my mind is still compelling me to be very cautious with my bipolar disorder. And the third dosing strategy that I use is 10 milligrams at bedtime, and I call this living my best life dosing. When I feel comfortable enough to use 10 milligrams at bedtime on a nightly basis, this is when I'm not having any intrusive thoughts, I've been sleeping well consistently, and I know, based on the timing of the year, that mania is not something that's just around the corner for me, and I'm ready to live my best life for a short period of time. With this dosing, I'm able to get up out of bed early, well before my alarm clock, and kind of have spring in my step, and I'm able to have productive mornings and get a lot done. I should say that I do take precautions and use my bipolar journaling strategy, which I've covered in a more recent video, which I'll link at the end of this video. And I also have frequent discussions with my wife about how I'm feeling in general based on my mindset in relation to bipolar. This is sadly the dosing strategy that I use the least often, as I'm still very cautious about my bipolar disorder, and I'm very determined to keep myself healthy and out of the hospital long term. If you have any tips to taking antipsychotics or tips for bipolar disorder in general, I would love for you to share them in the comments so we can discuss them. And before you go, I wanted to let you know that if you're interested in hearing more about my experience with bipolar disorder, you can pick up a copy of the 5th episode, Inside the Manic Mind, my new book, by clicking on a link in the description of this video. Take care.